And good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening,
thank
Chair.
you.
Evening, Chair.
Good evening, Chair.
Thanks to everyone for attending the hybrid meeting for Planning Committee Tuesday, the 8th of December. For those of you who don't know, my name is Councillor June Molyneux. I'm Chair of the committee. Councillor Chris Francis, Vice Chair. Also present are officers, councillors who will ask to introduce themselves in a moment. Please note it's a hybrid meeting. We have some members here in the Lancastrian, some joining from home via Teams. We also have registered speakers joining remotely. A recording of the meeting will be available online following the meeting. If you have joined the call or attending in Committee Room 1 because you're a member of the public who's registered to speak, please note you'll have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. Otherwise, your microphone will be muted. For ease, a pack's been prepared which contains reports, plans, presentation slides and any addendum items for each item to ensure everyone can easily follow the agenda. This is available online. After officers have presented the report and speakers have made representations, I'll invite members to make any comments. When speaking, please reference paragraph number, page number to enable everyone to follow you. I'll repeat the motion before the vote is taken to ensure everyone is aware of what is being voted on. If the technology fails, I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve any issues, or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask all members to confirm they can hear and speak before the meeting begins. I'll go through each member alphabetically. Councillor Beaver.
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Boardman.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Yes, Chair.
Yeah, your microphone was a bit high. Councillor Combs.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Gordon France.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Danny G.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. Councillor Gray.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Hargreaves.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Hilton.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Morwood.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Whittam.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Whitaker.
Present, Chair.
And Councillor France, Senator Chris France.
Present, Chair.
Also officers Adele Hayes.
Here, Chair.
Ian.
Here, Chair.
Scotland. Alex.
Here, Chair.
Nina. Democratic
Here, Chair.
Services. Right. With that, have apologies, please. I couldn't hear you very well then. I think you were muted.
We've had apologies. Yeah, we've had apologies from Councillor John Dalton.
Yeah, and Councillor Corns is substituting. Thank you. The minutes of the meeting of the 24th of November, pages 3 to 4. Will somebody propose those, please?
Move those, Chair.
Thank you. And somebody moved and
Seconded, Chair.
Oh,
Seconded, Chair, Gordon France.
Okay, thank you. Anybody against those? And I'll take it as read that everybody's happy. Everybody's in favour of those. The minutes are approved. Any declarations of interest? Members are reminded of responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters on the agenda. As this is a hybrid meeting, if a member has a pecuniary interest, they're requested to vacate the Lancastrian for their item or leave the call completely rather than just mute the microphone. The member then returns to Lancastrian or rejoin the call following the completion of the item. Any declarations? Okay, thank you. You were muted then, Councillor Boardman. I could hear you, but nobody else could.
Yes, Chair. Item D, Stork Farm, High Street, Maudsley.
Okay, thank you. Going on to item 3, planning applications to be determined. There are 6 items to be determined. For the benefit of the public tonight, the speaking arrangements are as follows. The officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish attend, councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes apart from a ward councillor who may speak for 5. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I will grant the applicant or agent a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who haven't registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings and ask that all your mobile phones are turned to silent. With that, we go on to item 3A, Willbrook, Bluestone Lane, Maudsley, pages 5 to 40. Ian's going to present this item. I've no registered speakers, and that's it. Right, Ian, can you present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of 4 detached dwellings following the demolition of the existing dwelling and associated outbuildings at Willbrook on Bluestone Lane in Maudsley. Members will recall that this application was presented to the committee on the 24th of November, where a decision was deferred in order to allow members to undertake a site visit, and members visited the site yesterday. The application site is located in the Greenbelt and comprises a dwelling house and 3 substantial outbuildings. The site is previously developed land in line with the definitions set out in the National Planning Policy Framework. The framework and local plan allow for the redevelopment of such sites on the proviso that the development does not have a greater impact on the openness than the existing development. Given the current impact of the existing buildings on the site to be removed, the proposed dwellings would not be materially larger and would not have a greater impact on openness. On this basis, it's not considered that the proposed development would constitute inappropriate development. The proposed dwellings would be of a modest scale and simple modern appearance. They would reflect the domestic character of the site and nearby residential development and are not considered to be harmful to the character of the area. The proposed dwellings would meet with the council's interface guidelines and there would be no unacceptable impact on residential amenity as a result of the development. LCC Highways have assessed the scheme and raised no objection. It is therefore considered that the proposed development would not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity of the site. In addition, there would be no unacceptable drainage or ecology impacts. All issues are covered in detail within the committee reports. The proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. As I stated at the previous meeting, I accept that the National Planning Policy Framework sets out that the redevelopment of previously developed land, or brownfield sites as we often know it as, is acceptable in principle. And as I made clear at the last meeting again, that this cannot be at all costs and without consideration of technical matters, and in particular, I think, the design details. Indeed, looking at the framework, it makes clear that creating high quality buildings and places is fundamental to what the planning and development process should achieve. It also leads to improvements in the quality of existing environments. The framework expands upon the fundamental principles of good design to define what is expected for well-designed places and explains how planning policies and decisions should support this. At a local level, Policy 17 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy states that the design of new development should take account of the character and appearance of the local area, including, amongst other things, design, materials, and ensuring development is sympathetic to the surrounding land use. Policy BNE1 of our local plan outlines the design criteria for new development, stating that proposals should not have a significant detrimental impact on the street scene by virtue of its density, its siting layout, the building plot ratio, the height, the scale and massing, the design materials, the materials, and the long-standing fundamental principles for good design are that they're fit for purpose, durable, and I like this particular part, bring delight. This proposal is not one that brings delight to me. The houses I consider are regimental. The layout does not meld with the landscape. The development appears cramped and dominated with hard standing and parking for cars, which has been squeezed in. And it fails to create a sense of place or have any local distinctiveness. And for these reasons, I cannot support the proposal and move that the application is refused. I can formalise that for more later on, but I'll stop there and leave that to other members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair,
Anybody
you're
else wish
muted.
to speak? I'm not now. I was. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say, I do agree with Councillor Morwood on many of the comments that he's just made in relation to the style of the dwellings that's been proposed on the site. I'm not personally in favour of the same dwelling style being used multiple times on one site in the rural area. It does work in town and urban environments, but potentially not in the rural areas. So I do agree with many of his comments. I did listen to Councillor Morwood last planning committee meeting and thought, well, I'll do a little bit of research on this. So I had to drive around our local area because I'm a bit like that. There are, unfortunately, though, many examples, and they are actually from the 1960s and 70s of this style of dwelling, which is like a villa-style dwelling, not just within Maudsley, but within Eccleston and the surrounding villages. Yeah, they are dispersed with a different style between them, but to name but a few streets, we've got Beachfields in Eccleston, Hawthorns in Heskin, Brookfield in Maudsley, and there are many others actually. But yeah, they do have a similar style of dwelling, albeit 1960s, 70s built. So I do have sympathy with Councillor Morwood's comments. I think it's very difficult for us as a committee to refuse an application based on that. I think we've been on thin ice if we do. So I will have a further think about that and listen to the debate before I make a decision.
Okay, Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with what Councillor Morwood says. Absolutely. They talk about this having an impact on the. I know Maudsley, and I didn't realise there were outbuildings outside of there. So what we're having now, what we're looking at now, is 4 houses, which will have a significant impact on the street scene. No question about that. At the present time, there's 1 access. There's going to be 2 accesses. Is that right? 2 accesses, yeah. So there's going to be a hazard. When we went on the site visit, Chairman, we had to dodge the cars coming along the road to get out of the way. It's on a blind bend and very, very dangerous indeed. I can't. The Parish Council object to this on the basis of green belt. Now, there's another issue later on which we'll get to where they talk about green belt and the impact of all this property development in Maudsley, which is being developed by several people, agencies and so on. I think this is a wrong application in the wrong place, and I'll second Councillor Morwood's proposal for a refusal.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. Anyone else wish to make comment? If not, Adele, you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If no more members wish to make comment, then it's incumbent on me just to, for the record, be clear on what grounds that members are refusing the application, are going to refuse the application if that's what is the result of the vote. I've heard a couple of things spoke about. I would just like to come back on the Greenbelt issue in terms of the principle and its previously developed site, and just remind members that the local highway authority have raised no objections on highway safety grounds and are satisfied that adequate sightlines can be achieved. I know Councillor Morwood had raised concerns about the design of the overall development, but for the record, it is important that a reason for refusal is recorded and members vote on that reason for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Boardman, then Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listening to the debate and listening to Adele's comments, I think it will be on sticky ground if we as a committee refuse it just based on the aesthetic value of the dwellings. The planning officers have made a case for putting this forward for acceptance and approval. So I will put it to the committee that I will second the I will put it forward that we approve the application as per the planning officer's comments.
Thank you. Right, I've got. Well, I'll let people who haven't spoken come in first. Councillor Hargreaves, then Councillor Whitaker, then Councillor Morwood.
I do actually agree that aesthetically, we actually said this at the beginning, they're not very nice, and I don't think they fit in. There's a nice big bungalow at the side, and then it sort of goes into these 4 dwellings, which are very modern, but really not a lot of thought gone into the development itself. I would actually raise concern about Lancashire County Council always approve the fact that they have no problem at all with the amount of traffic and another 4 cars or 2, 4, 6, 8 cars coming out of there, you know, say 2 cars per house. It's a very, very dangerous spend, and I'm really surprised that they've approved it.
Councillor Whitaker.
Councillor Hargreaves just made the point that I was going to make, Chair. It's a dangerous thing. LCC, whoever in LCC Highways made this decision, wants to go back to school.
Okay, Councillor, I've got Councillor Beaver, Councillor Corns. I'll get to you, Councillor Marwood, don't worry. I'm letting you round up. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what Councillor Marwood has said, and I want to take into consideration. However, I do believe that it's not enough grounds to not go through with this, and I would like to second Councillor Boardman's proposal to accept it. Thank you.
Right, okay. Councillor Corns. You're muted, Val.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, don't worry, I do it.
I was watching everyone else. I was determined not to do it. Looking along Bluestone Lane, that there is no particular design of house going along there anywhere. There's bungalows, there's houses, there's semi-detached bungalows. There's a variety of different designs. So I'm not convinced about the design of these particular houses. As regards the safety of the road, for many 40, 50 years, the Robin Hood, which was a very popular pub and had numerous cars going in and out of the car park, over those years, there was never a problem. There were no accidents that I recall. So I'm not quite sure that the concern on that particular stretch of road would cause me any particular concern. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Corns. Councillor Marwood. Councillor Whitaker, do you want to say something else, or have you just not put your hand down? Oh,
Put my hand down.
Councillor.
Put it down there.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Marwood.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just try and sum up. I think Councillor Corns, I wasn't quite sure if she was saying there was a variety of different houses along that stretch, which I agree there is, and that's exactly one of the reasons I'm against it, because these particular houses are exactly the same. There's no variety at all. And as Councillor Boardman was talking about similar houses in the 60s and 70s, well, I would say that maybe what was acceptable 30 and 40 years ago, we're looking afresh, and we're, and the green belt and villages and so on are being built up slowly but surely. So we have to look very closely. So for the benefit, hopefully, of Adele and for those of us when we come to a vote, I just want to reiterate that the number of the dwellings proposed and the regimented layout, with its cramped arrangements of parking in hard standing areas, which basically dominate that scheme, the proposal would result in the overdevelopment of the site, and as I consider, the detriment of the character and appearance of the area. The design of the proposed developments is therefore contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework, the core strategy, and the policy BN-E1 of the Chorley Local Plan 2012-2021. I hope that is helpful to Adele.
Okay. All right. Okay. Right. So we'll move to Adele. You want to come back?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Morwood, for clarifying it. Just as a matter of correction, it's the local plan is 2026. Thank you.
Okay. Have you right now? Your hand's still up, Councillor Marwood. I'll move to the vote. So I'll take the amendment first. All those for refusal, for or against refusal. I'll go through each member alphabetically. Councillor Beaver, for or against refusal?
Against, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Boardman?
Against, Chair.
Councillor Corns?
I would go for.
For refusal?
For. No, against refusal. For passing, yes, to be passed.
We're voting it for or against refusal at the moment. Councillor Gordon France? Councillor G?
Against.
Councillor Gray?
For.
Councillor Hargreaves?
For.
Councillor Hilton?
I'd like to abstain.
All right. Councillor Marwood?
For.
Councillor Whittam?
For.
Councillor Whitaker?
For.
Councillor France?
For.
And myself, I'll abstain. Okay, so I've, to my reckoning, that is refusal. Members have voted for refusal.
Could I just clarify, it's a legal officer here, which way Councillor Gordon France voted?
For refusal. Okay, Alex?
I agree with you, Chair, yes. The members have voted to refuse the application for the reasons suggested by Councillor Morwood.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 3B. Astley Hall, Park Road, Chorley, pages 41 to 58. Adele's going to present this item. There's no registered speakers. Adele.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This application seeks listed building consents for a number of repairs and minor alterations to the northeastern cottage wing of the Astley Hall. These include works such as repointing, window repairs and some replacement, lead renewal and other repairs. This forms part of the Council's long-term conservation plan for Astley. It should be noted that Historic England raised no objection and no comments have been received from any of the other amenity bodies. The work set out in the repair schedule are considered to be essential maintenance and repairs and represent sound conservation practice, which would help the Council sustained and active use of Astley Hall. The assessment, as set out in the submitted heritage statement, provides a heritage impact assessment, and its findings are accepted and agreed to have a neutral impact on the significance of this part of the building. The proposed works would not harm the special historic or architectural significance of Astley Hall and are therefore considered to meet the statutory obligation of the Act, which is to preserve. Finer details and specifications of materials and other various aspects can be secured by way of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so over to members. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's long overdue. It's much needed. I won't mess about. I would like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and that the work be conducted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor G.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I would second that. As Councillor Beaver said, it's long overdue. It's something that we really do need in Chorley. If you go down there, you can see some of the brickwork that have taken off. It does look quite good. It will be well looked after by people. So it will be a jewel in the crown for Chorley, and I'm happy to second it.
Okay. Any other members wish to speak? No? Okay. If anybody wishes to vote against the officer recommendation, if they say no. Okay, I take that as everybody's happy with the officer recommendation. Alex, do you want to?
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm that members have resolved to grant listed building consent subject to conditions in relation to Astley Hall.
Okay. Item 3C, Whitegate, 75 Gorsey Lane, Maudsley, pages 59 to 84 with an update on your addendum, even though the recommendation stays the same. Adele's going to present this item and I have no registered speakers. Adele.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission to demolish the existing bungalow and to erect 3 detached dwelling houses. Whilst the site is comprised of a bungalow and its garden, it does not constitute a previously developed site when considering the definition of the framework, as it is a garden within a built-up area forming part of the village of Maudsley. Although it is not within the defined settlement boundary line, for the purposes of the framework, it is within the village. The proposed development fails to satisfy any of the exceptions set out in paragraph 145 of the framework and is therefore inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. 2 separate planning permissions, extant planning permissions, exist on the site, one for infill and one for a replacement dwelling. However, the current proposal is for 3 dwellings and would be more harmful to the Greenbelt. Whilst the proposal is considered to be acceptable in design terms and would not be detrimental to highway safety or neighbouring amenity, the presence or otherwise of bats has not been established, as the surveys that have been submitted in support of the application are actually out of date. Therefore, the impacts of the proposed development on this protected species cannot be fully assessed prior to the determination of the application. The application is recommended for refusal on Greenbelt grounds and sufficient information in relation to bats in the actual reasons themselves are set out in the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, over to you, members. Oh, somebody. Who is it? Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. I went on the site visit and I've looked carefully at the report. I agree entirely with what Adele has said. The only thing I would comment about that is about highway safety, because when we went on there, it's extremely narrow road. The thing that impressed me about this, it is in the Greenbelt, like the first one we looked at Maudsley, and the Maudsley Parish Council have made a very detailed series of comments, which is seen as paragraph 5 on the consultations. And they talk about the size and physical scale of buildings means that it will have a visual impact on the local environment. There is a large development just down the road, which is 50 odd houses. The road infrastructure is not sufficient. And the other issue is about the present developments down there are causing problems with flooding and so on and so forth. It's plainly in the Greenbelt. It's plainly speculative, and it should be refused. And I'll propose the officer's recommendation, Chair.
That's why I did it this time. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll second that proposal, refusing on the Greenbelt, and it's overdevelopment of this site. I was on the site visit yesterday and saw it, and it's just a bit too small for my liking. Thank you.
Councillor France, Gordon France.
I'd just like to say that I agree with Councillor Whitaker and Councillor Beaver. There is only one property on there, and I think the footprint is 50% larger. So yes, I'm quite happy to go with the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Hargreaves.
Yeah, I think it would be over intensification of the site, and I actually agree that it should be refused.
Okay. Anyone else? So I've got a proposer and a seconded for refusal, for the officer recommendation for refusal. Anybody wish to say any different to that? If not, no. Silence is golden. So, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Members have resolved to refuse the application for the reasons contained in the addendum.
Okay, thank you. Item 3D, Stork Farm, High Street, Maudsley, pages 85 to 112, with an update on your addendum. There's an Adele's going to present this item. I have one registered speaker, the applicant, Martin Boardman. But just to clarify, Councillor Boardman has declared an interest on this item and he'll be speaking as applicant on it. Following his 3-minute allocation to speak, he will not partake in the discussion or consideration of this item any further and will not partake in the vote. Once the application has been considered and the vote has been taken, he will return to the meeting in his capacity as a councillor on the planning committee to consider the remaining items. Martin, you can hear everything?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can hear.
Okay. Adele, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission to demolish all buildings on site and erect 3 detached dwelling houses. Existing access arrangements would be utilised. Whilst the application site is comprised of both greenfield and previously developed land, the proposed development itself is focused solely on the previously developed area of the site. Accordingly, exception G of paragraph 145 of the framework is engaged. The parcel of land which is greenfield would become an ecological area. The officer's report assesses the proposal and concludes that the proposed development accords with exception G and would not be harmful to the openness of the greenbelt. The proposal is considered to be acceptable in design terms and would not be harmful to the character and appearance of the area, nor would it adversely affect neighbouring amenity or highway safety. There are, however, great crested newts present within the pond on site, and part of the development would result in the loss of part of its habitat. A Natural England licence would be required, and mitigation would be informed through this process, and the identification of population numbers which are currently unknown, as a survey was carried out, and this only protects the presence and not the population size. With appropriate habitat creation and enhancement within the identified ecological area, the favourable conservation status of great crested newts would be maintained and enhancement would be achieved. The local planning authority is satisfied that the 3 derogation tests are met, and these are detailed in the report. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Martin, would you like to make your representations now? Alex, can you start the timer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Oh, sorry. Can I just turn that off a second? Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak tonight as representative of MWV Residents Limited. We're a small residential design and build business based in Maudsley, which I established in 2011 to primarily work with residential and home landowners to deliver high quality building work in the form of extensions, conversions and new build dwellings in the local area where I live. Over the past 9 years, we've worked on many residential projects, all for the homeowners and all in the Lancashire area. I must stress we are not a property developer. We do not go out to the market looking for land in order to purchase to build homes which are sold on the private market. The new homes we have built to date are bespoke design and built for the clients that wish to live in them. If I can explain how this Stork Farm Stables application has come about. We were approached by Mr. and Mrs. Wesley Knowles, the current owners and residents of Stork Farm Stables, to design and try to achieve planning permission for one house for them and their 2 children to live in on the site to replace the current small lodge. The farm has been under Knowles family ownership for over 40 years and was operated by Mr. Knowles' father as a small holding and equestrian stabling business. The site ceased to operate as a business in 1984 when Mr. Knowles Sr. passed the farm to his son. Since this date, Mr. Knowles has lived on the site and used the buildings and menage for his own private use. The buildings of the new dwelling was on the basis that they had an offer to sell the remainder of the land to a property developer. During negotiation phase, it became clear that the proposal was being tabled for 4 to 5 additional dwellings on top of the single dwelling for the Knowles family. As Mr. Knowles was uncomfortable with the proposed quantity of dwellings, the sale was subsequently withdrawn. MWB Residents was asked by the landowner to work in partnership with them to generate a proposal for as fewer dwellings as possible in order to provide the funds required to allow them to build their own home. I'm not going to preach to you the whys and wherefores of the Greenbelt policy and the planning framework. The planning officer's report is clear and thorough and quite correctly questions the suitability and appropriateness of the proposed development and its impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. I will, however, make reference to the Council's own recent track record on applications for residential development on previously developed sites within the Greenbelt, and especially within the village of Maudsley alone. Church Farm Stables, High Street, opposite St Peter's Church, opposite this site, achieved planning permission in May 2019 for the demolition of existing stables and the erecting of 3 residential dwellings. Lyric Farm on Bluestone Lane achieved planning permission March 2017 for the demolition of 3 buildings, stables, a store and the erecting of 3 dwellings and a granny annex bungalow. Chorley Council and this committee has well established and consistent approach to permitting residential development on previously developed land, agricultural or equestrian, so long as the proposed would not be detrimental to the character and appearance of the area. The proposal in front of you today has been sympathetically designed with only 3 dwellings, each individually styled to utilise traditional materials of brick, stone, slate, timber cladding and spaced out as much as have been able to with the previously developed areas on the site. I'll come to a close, Chair. The majority of the site has been open fields beyond the development area, which include the enhanced ponds and to retain protected as an enhanced habitat for wildlife and newts. Access to the site is good with 2 existing entries from High Street with a suitable area off the road, the pavement, for vehicles to pull off the highway prior to entering plots 2 and 3. We thank the officer's recommendations that planning permissions should be granted subject conditions to the proposed accordance with the exception of paragraph 145G of the National Policy Framework. The proposal would not be detrimental to the character and appearance of the area, nor would it prejudice the highway and safety. I'd just like to thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, and I'd also like to reiterate that I will not take any further input into the negotiations and discussions. Thank you.
You're muted, June.
I was just thanking him for elevating me to the mayoralty. I was just checking my speakers. Martin's like not taking any more part in the discussion or the debate. I've got Councillor Whitaker, Councillor Beaver at the moment.
Thanks, Chair. This is the third one in Maudsley, and first of all, I'd like to say it's disappointing that the Parish Council have not made any comments in view of the comments that they made about 75 Gorsey Lane, about building in the Green Belt. This is in the Green Belt. There are no very special circumstances as far as I can see. There's a loss of an employment site, and to say that 3 detached dwellings will be have no impact on the village is just ridiculous. Councillor Boardman, in his comments, talked about the history of Maudsley and how it's been built on, and how that's if you like a bit of a reprimand for the Borough Council if we're going to do anything with this, but then proceeds to support an application for 3 more, which doesn't seem to be any logic about it at all. I don't know why Maudsley Parish Council didn't object. I'm absolutely sure it's got nothing to do with Mr. Boardman's business, absolutely not. But I think this is a wrong application in the wrong place. It's a loss of employment site. We went on a site visit not too long ago where employment was a very major issue. These are stables, equestrian. We've not done away with equestrianism, have we? It's just people looking at these things, trying to make some money out of doing it. And I think it should be objected on the basis that it's Greenbelt. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Beaver. And then I've got Councillor Moore with Councillor France.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I dropped my hand. Thank you. I will submit.
Okay. Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. Just unmuting. I felt I had to come into this. Obviously, I objected to the first application on various grounds to do with the design and the character. And I have to remind everybody that it was the design and the character that was the refusal. It wasn't to do with the Greenbelt. As I've stated, the redevelopment of previously developed land is allowed in the Greenbelt. And so I look at the design and the character, and in this case, they are not all the same. They are individually designed, and I do think they would enhance the area. So unfortunately, I cannot, on this occasion, come up with any legitimate reason to refuse it in terms of the Greenbelt, or in fact the design and the character. So I'm happy to accept the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor France. Gordon France.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I don't think, as it was said, the stables haven't been used since the 1980s, and again, I don't think 3 properties on this site are particularly large. I think it's quite good, and I'm quite happy to second the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Oh, I don't know what I've done. That's it. I'm back. I pressed the wrong button. Does anybody else wish to make any comment? If not, we're going to take a recorded vote for this item because I have a proposer and seconder for the officer recommendation. I had a proposal for refusal, but no seconder. So it's for or against the officer recommendation for approval. Go through everybody. Councillor Beaver, for or against?
For, Chair.
Councillor Corns?
For, Chair.
Councillor France, Gordon France?
For, Chair.
Councillor G?
For.
Councillor Gray?
For.
Councillor Hargreaves?
For.
Councillor Hilton?
For.
Councillor Morwood?
For.
Councillor Whittam?
For.
Councillor Whitaker?
Against.
Councillor Chris France?
For.
And myself for. So that's Alex, will you confirm that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve planning permission subject to the conditions in the addendum.
Okay, and Councillor Boardman, you can join us again.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 3A, land at Barnes Wallace Way, Buckshaw Village, page 113 to 138, with an update on your addendum. Ian's going to present this item, and I have registered speakers. I've got an objector, Julie Wild, and the agent, Paul Kelly-Grover. Julie, Paul, can you confirm you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
I can confirm.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Right, Ian, can you present the report, please?
Yep. Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a building comprising a children's nursery with associated car parking and landscaping. The application site is a vacant plot located on Buckshaw Village within a central area close to a range of amenities and as an allocated employment site in the Chorley local plan. The proposal would occupy part of the employment allocation, although the impact on employment land supply within the borough would be limited, with a significant supply of land remaining to meet the projected demand. The site has been vacant for a substantial length of time, and the applicant has also provided a marketing report that demonstrates the site has been marketed for employment use since May 2018, and that no offers for such use were received. Overall, it is considered that the development of part of the employment allocation for children's nursery would not prejudice the overall aims of the development plan and the ability to supply employment land necessary to satisfy the identified need. The proposed buildings would be modern. The proposed building would be modern and unobtrusive, whilst the siting would be compatible with the surroundings. The building itself would have no adverse impact on neighbour amenity, given its modest scale. A noise report has been submitted, which concludes that noise from the proposed development is unlikely to result in any impact on nearby residential properties, and this assessment has been verified and accepted by the Council's Environmental Health Officer. The transport assessments and associated documents submitted in support of the application have been analysed by LCC Highways, who consider that the proposed development will not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity of the site. All issues are covered in detail within the committee report, and overall the application is considered to be acceptable in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out on the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Julie, do you want to make your representations now?
Thank you. So to introduce myself, I'm the manager of the Hub at Buckshaw, which is a private leisure facility based on Unity Place, offering a swim school, coffee bar, beauty salon and 151 place Ofsted graded outstanding nursery, which is 0.2 miles from the proposed development, according to Google Maps. My objection is if this planning application is approved, the risk to the loss of jobs that this puts on 40 plus currently employed nursery staff at our nursery. A huge risk for a facility that is not needed on Buckshaw Village, which can be backed up by the figures from the LCC Child Sufficiency Assessment for the Chorley area. And whilst I feel this is only a guide to local provision, I do believe it's a current picture at the moment. I feel there is absolutely no requirement for another facility in the area to offer further education and childcare places for 0 to 4-year-olds that is already offered. And just to highlight, in the Chorley area, there are 6,000 plus childcare places available and only 3,000 in the round figure occupied. There's 49% of places unoccupied. Our own nursery, for the first time since opening the setting, has vacancies across all areas, which is due to the economic uncertainty in general and also the current pandemic, which I believe will have an effect for some time to come on the local community and nationwide also. And whilst I understand it's not the role of the planning system to manage market competition, I would ask that the committee consider not putting the risk of currently employed staff to provide employment for a new facility. However, there is a need for small business units on the site for which it already has planning. This is shown in the current unavailability of vacant small units on Bookshaw and approving planning for a children's nursery is not a new offer for the area. There are actually 4 other large registered nurseries, children's nurseries within a 5-minute drive of this application, offering sufficient choice for different needs of families in the area. I would also be concerned at the increased traffic flow at peak times on Barnes-Wallis Way. I'm sure we've already seen the queues that form around the KFC at peak times, which uses the same access off Barnes-Wallis Way as the proposed development would. Should the nursery be at capacity, this is introducing a further 85 vehicles at peak collection times when KFC is already busy. I would also question whether siting a children's nursery next to a fast food drive-through and a busy public house with an outdoor seating area with a large screen TV facilities is sending out the correct message to our children and families. I think we could also get the applicant's intention that families would use the public transport network to access the nursery is not a viable proposition. I would also question whether the already horrendous traffic situations that arise on Unity Place could be impacted. The Warhorse Public House has an agreement with Trinity Bookshaw School whereby families are welcome to park their cars on the pub car park at school drop-off and collection times to alleviate the traffic. Just to conclude, would the only other option would be if the car park is not available for school drop-offs, this is going to also have a massive impact on the parents collecting from the school Unity Place site. And then also where would park 28 staff car? Yeah, as there are only actually 25 spaces outlined. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Paul, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. So good evening. I'm Paul Cally-Grover, Group Planning Director for the Leaf Group. This evening I'm representing Kids Planet Day Nurseries Limited, who are looking to deliver affordable childcare and create up to 33 skilled jobs through the delivery of the new care nursery facility at Buckshaw Village. In selecting new sites, Kids Planet seek out locations where there is identified capacity within the existing daycare provision, as well as seeking sites where there is known and planned for growth in both housing numbers and families. By following this approach, Kids Planet have significant experience in successful developments in areas where their nurseries have become assets and added to the local community offer. As part of the site selection process, we've reviewed the Lancashire Childcare Sufficiency Assessment 2019 and used it in conclusions in guiding the site selection. In the addendum which is attached to tonight's report, you'll see some additional responses we've prepared in terms of the assessment that was carried out for the Kids Planet when we were looking at that report. We maintain that there is demand for daycare nursery places in the Buckshaw area today, with demand expected to increase in the near future with new housing and significant areas of employment coming along. This application site has been vacant for a number of years, as outlined by the case officer. Since securing planning consent for the fast food restaurant and the employment uses, the site has been actively marketed since May 2018. There has been very limited interest from occupiers and only 2 occupiers coming forward for office, both of which have selected other sites in the area to go forward. So therefore, it's very unlikely that the site's going to come forward in the near future to create the opportunities and the jobs. In terms of the issues relating to highways, these have all been addressed through conversations with Lancashire, and as you've set out in terms of the conditions, additional information that needs to be provided in terms of how the site's going to be managed, both through construction and through occupation. So I'm just going to sum up that the scheme before you represents an opportunity to bring forward a vacant site that has stood empty for a number of years. It will bring forward additional choice for families in the area looking for affordable childcare, and will importantly given the wider economic situation, create 33 additional skilled jobs in the area. For this reason, I ask you to support the officer's recommendation and approve the application this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, members. I've got Councillor G, Councillor Hilton and Councillor Beaver. Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. Before I speak, could I ask Adele a question? This application is for a child's nursery. Will they be providing breakfast clubs and after-school clubs in this area for the local schools in that area?
I think Ian would actually be better answering that question because he's actually handled the case. But even if at this stage there's no proposal to do that, those kind of activities associated with the day nursery would be ancillary elements anyway. But maybe Ian can clarify that a little bit further.
Ian?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you, I'm not exactly sure of the scope of the offer of the particular operator. It's possible that they could offer that kind of service, but I don't know the details of exactly how they would choose to run it, to be quite honest with you, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I would like to move refuse. Sorry, not refuse. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation on this one. This where it's situated is basically it's only a small plot. It is behind KFC. It's I wouldn't say it was a busy road, that one. It's a one-way system. There is great scope for nurseries within Buckshaw, Exton and Chorley. They're oversubscribed in a lot of areas. This would be a new build. It would be good for the village, and I'm quite happy to, as I said, go for the officer's recommendation. So I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. I do not have an issue with a nursery per se. It is the location that I have an issue with. This is directly next to a drive-through for KFC, I believe. I have serious concerns about air pollution to these children that are going to be there. As you pass in through a drive-through, there are lots of cars travelling at slow speed, producing lots of fumes, lots of particulate matter, nitrous oxide. And I think this is an absolute disaster. Just in the press this week, I'll read you an article headline from The Guardian. Cumulative pollution from London traffic may have led to little girl's death. A beautiful 9-year-old girl died in 2013 and air pollution has been linked to her death. There's lots of evidence to show that pollution from drive-throughs is significant. Looking at another study here, there is drive-through employees and users could be breathing in harmful levels of pollution, and that's from the University of Coventry. Poor air quality is the greatest environmental risk to public health, the research states. So, no, I don't have an issue with the nursery. I have an issue with the location there. It might not be a material planning concern, but ethically, I cannot support this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal, the officer's recommendation. I don't have a problem with the location. If you look at the map, there are houses nearer than where the nursery is going to go. So what we're going to do is shift them out. We've heard that there are other nurseries 5 minutes away. No one said that when we wanted to build the hub. They didn't say, well, we don't need one. You're 5 minutes away. Next to a drive-through, well, guess what? Opposite, there's a school. Let's close that down. I don't have a problem with this, full stop. So I'll second it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do actually agree with some of the comments that Councillor Allgate made. I was one of the councillors that wasn't happy with the siting of the KFC restaurant at the start because it was opposite the primary school. I do know the KFC restaurant. I've not been to it recently, to be perfectly honest with you. And I also do agree with the fact that there is a significant amount of pollution linked to drive-through restaurants. I don't think their site is appropriate. However, again, there's always a however, that the site is appropriate for development, and a nursery I have no issue with in Bookshaw Village. It's a tough call, this one. I think we need to look at whether there are some material planning considerations in relation to siting next to a fast food restaurant. But I'll be abstaining on this one, I'm afraid.
Okay, Councillor Marwood.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I sympathise with the objector in terms of her concerns for staff and the numbers, and in terms of pupil numbers. But it's a commercial decision, of course, and this nursery has looked at it and decided that there is a market out there. It's very unfortunate that it's next to a fast food, the KFC, and I remember the planning consideration then and the explanation at the time where there was no formal planning reason we could refuse it, and we still can't for that. And perhaps, and I think I accept what Councillor Boardman was saying, that it's something really we need to look at in terms of our planning, our local plan and so on, that we look at bringing in some conditions that stop developments next to fast food. But unfortunately, as I say, I can't think of a legitimate planning reason for refusal, and so I will support the officer's recommendations.
Just a minute, I've got Councillor Whitaker, and then I've got Councillor Boardman, and then I've got Adele. I think I've covered everybody there. Councillor Whitaker.
Chair, I agree with what Councillor Hilton was saying. I think we disregard at our risk the business of air pollution adjacent to where children are going to school. It's a serious matter, and if we haven't got a condition that Alistair alludes to relating to this, then we should have. I shall be voting against this.
Okay, I've got Councillor Boardman again.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Councillor Hilton, got your name wrong previously. I can't see you on the screen very well. That's the first apology. Second one is...
I'd be highly insulted that you thought he was Steve Holden.
It's fine.
He's not even here. And also...
he's not unshaven.
Should have got to Specsavers.
Is it beyond this committee's powers to actually introduce a condition in relation to this application? Could we not, for instance, post nursery opening, put some kind of monitoring in place in order to ascertain what the issues are in relation to pollution within the area? One for Adele, really.
Okay. Can I bring? Well, I've got Councillor G.
Right, thanks, Chair. I agree with pollution around the area, and I think it is bad. But when you look at where the nursery is going, it's further away from the main road than the school is. And I'm sure it's about the same distance as where the hub is, where the other nursery is. I too remember the debate we had about the KFC. Again, I've not been to it. I don't think it was in the best place, but we accepted it. So I can't see any difference where this nursery is going in terms of pollution than where the school is and where the hub is. So yes, we need to do something about pollution, but it's not within this committee's remit. It's something that we have to talk about at a wider, general debate. So again, I'm happy to go for the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Whitaker, do you want to come in again?
Well, just picking up on what Councillor Boardman said, if we're talking about doing an air monitoring thing, that would require us to defer this. We can't approve this and then do an air monitoring thing afterwards, can we? So,
well, I'll bring in Ellen. I'm going to bring Ellen at the end to answer those queries.
Nobody's persuaded me anything about approving this, so I'm going to vote against.
Okay, Councillor Gordon France. And then
Thank
Adele.
you, Chair. I'd only like to, whilst I go along with what Councillor Little's saying, and I think somewhere before long there should be something brought into the planning framework about air pollution. I think it's very, very late in coming. At the present moment, within the framework, I can only support this application, unfortunately, but I do have a lot of sympathy for Councillor Hilton's views.
Councillor Hargreaves and then Adele.
I agree with Councillor Boardman, but I think, you know, it has to be done before. And in fact, I think Councillor Whittaker actually touched on the basis we'd have to defer it to actually look at it.
Well, can we let Adele comment?
Yeah.
Adele.
I'm just switching off my mute button. Thank you for that, Chair. I've listened with interest, and in all consciousness, I cannot advise committee that there isn't an issue with air quality, and I am mindful of the comments made at the start by Councillor Hilton. You'll note that colleagues in environmental health have confirmed that they have no objections. However, given the concerns of members and given the very, very close proximity of the day nursery to what could be a lot of idling cars at a long time, and I hate to do this, and I'm really sorry to do this, but I would advocate that actually at this stage you do seek to defer it so we can get some more empirical data, especially as given that this issue is so fresh. It's coming out of the courts. The coroner's been asked to review the death of the little girl, and I think it's really, really important that we make decisions at Chorley having full regard to the evidence base that's available at the time, and therefore my professional advice to you is I cannot comment on the level of air quality. I do think air quality is a planning matter. I think it's something that we do need to take seriously, but until we have the evidence to say that, you know, given the size of the KFC, given the volume of traffic, there isn't an impact, I can't say that. And until I can say that in all consciousness, I think you should defer the decision to get that information. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Adele, and also just to come back on Councillor Danny G. It isn't so much Councillor G the proximity to the highway; it's the proximity to the actual drive-through avenue, which is as you drive into the KFC, it's actually adjacent to the play space, which is what's highlighted on the plan for the nursery. So I will take Adele's advice, and I will move that this committee defers this application until we've got a suitable pollution assessment from the KFC restaurant.
Councillor Beaver, Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was just about to propose that exact same thing. It's, to my mind, it's not the nursery that's in the wrong place, it's the KFC, and I would second that proposal that we have the survey.
Did we defer? I can't
Yes.
say it. Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, I was just going to second that proposal as well. The little girl's name is Ella Kissy Deborah, beautiful 9-year-old girl, and I just think people should look that up. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gray, and then I'll bring Adele in again.
I think we should defer this because, I mean, I go sometimes to the KFC, especially at night time, but I don't know how long the nursery's going to be open till. But there's cars queued up right back to the main road, sometimes at night, and their engines are ticking over all the time. So I think it's a good thing. We better find something out about this and go for the deferment.
Okay, Adele.
I hadn't actually put my hand down, Chair.
Oh,
but
you've not put it down. No, that's all right.
But just to reiterate what I said, really, I'm mindful that the KFC is, you know, within the village, but I think there's you know, a significant degree of separation from the other school and from houses. But clearly, if you've got a child in a nursery, potentially from 7:30 at night till 6 o'clock, next to all those idling cars, I'd like to see the evidence of what the particulate matter is. I know we haven't as a council got that air quality data, and we may need to do some research on it. But if you're asking me whether there's an impact, I can't honestly answer that question. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so going with the debate and what people have said, I would think that we're going to move for a deferral. Is that the agreement of everybody against that? No. Okay, Alex. So we're going to defer this decision for further.
Thank you, member. Well, you said it, Chair, so I don't need to repeat you.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Okay.
Item 4, the appeals report, pages 139 to 140. Anybody wants to make any comment about it? If not, we'll note it up. Adele?
Move the.
Yeah, Chair, can I just say, just to bring to members' attention, some of the appeal decisions are appeals against refusal of planning permission in respect of retrospective development. Therefore, now the appeals have been dismissed, we will escalate this now to enforcement action following a suitable period for matters to be rectified. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Move the report.
Thank you, Councillor G. Everybody happy with that? Okay, so that's.
Can I just?
Sorry, Councillor Morwood's got his hand up. I missed that.
So, just to quickly, yes, I just want to reiterate and emphasise what Adele has just said. We get too many retrospective applications, and it's time. I hope it's being noted because there'll be more coming in over the next months and years. That sometimes you have to pay the price if you don't follow the planning rules, and so I just urge everyone to have less of the retrospective and get the advice from the planning officers before you start doing things.
Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, whilst we've got Adele on the line, is it worth just Adele? Could you just explain to the committee what the next procedure is with an appeal of this case, where it's a respective, the buildings are built at the moment and being used, and how the enforcement and the timescales works?
Yes, I can. It is a very long process, as you will be aware.
In a minute.
Yeah. Sorry, the process, not me telling you what the process is. Essentially, the enforcement protocols that are set out in legislation are very much one of compliance rather than punitive measures. And where an applicant does submit an application to regularise it, we do allow the process to go through. But obviously the appeals where it's dismissed, that's the inspector's decision. We do allow a period of time for things to be rectified. What that period of is, it'll be dependent on each circumstances, but generally speaking, it's incumbent on us to be reasonable about matters. We do have the pandemic, obviously, so people may not be able to find alternative premises or alternative facilities. So what I'm suggesting we will revisit all of these effectively unauthorised developments in the new year, and where they are still in breach of planning control, we will then serve enforcement notices. Ultimately, Chair and Vice Chair, in consultation with the Director, will give that level of authority. We have to give a period of time for compliance. Again, we're talking usually 3 months, something like that is the time frame, and ultimately the appellant has the right of appeal against that notice. So it's certainly not a quick fix. All of these don't warrant stop notice or any direct action, and we will go through the process. I'd urge members to read the council's adopted enforcement protocols in the enforcement plan. It does have quite a lot of information in there, but if anybody wants to discuss anything in detail, then just contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right, thanks. So that's it. Right, that's the end of the business. Thanks to everybody involved, and the meeting's closed. But before you go, just like to say, I hope you have a very happy Christmas, as you can under these strange times, and we'll see you next year in 2021.
Merry Christmas,
Okay.
Chair.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.